Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello and very good morning to all of you. I hope you are safe and sound. Welcome to Melly's Telegram classes. This is a grammar lesson for advanced level. In this lesson today, we're going to talk about a transition. Now, what is a transition? First of all, a transition is also called a conjunctive or connective adverb. Transitions are words or a group of words which connect ideas. That's the main point. Transitions are used to connect ideas where in sentences and paragraphs. So we can use transitions between two sentences or more sentences or inside one sentence. In fact, transitions help your readers to follow your ideas in a smooth and natural way. So transitions are used to bring a good flow to your writing. Remember, transitions are usually used in formal speech and writing. It combines sentences and paragraphs. It has three positions in the second sentence. So, as I told you, transitions can be used inside a sentence or between two or more sentences. Now, whenever we use a transition between two or more sentences, in that case, it has three positions in the second sentence. The first position is that it is used between the first sentence and the second sentence. Before the transition, we can use a full stop or a semicolon. And then after the transition, we must use a comma. The second place is that we use a transition after the subject of the second sentence. In this case also, we use a full stop or a semicolon between the two sentences. But here, we use two commas because we have the transition in the middle of a sentence. So one comma should be before that and one comma after that. And the third usage is that we use a transition at the end of a sentence. That's not a very common place for a transition. In that case also, we use only one comma. Let's have some examples. First of all, with full stop or period. A full stop is also known as a period. Meat is not the only source of proteins. For example, beans are a good source. Now, in these two sentences, we have the transition, for example, and it's not a transitional word, it's a transitional phrase, because we have two words here. Now, if you see, before the transition, we have a full stop, and you can also use a semicolon. But in that case, remember, if you use a semicolon instead of a full stop, you have to use a small letter after the semicolon. And after the transition, we've got a comma. Number two, meat is not the only source of proteins. Beans, for example, are a good source. Now in this case, we have the transition used after the subject of the second sentence or the second idea. In this case, as I told you earlier, we use two commas to set off the transition. One comma before the transition and one comma after that. And number three, meat is not the only source of proteins. Beans are a good source, for example. So here the transition is used at the end of the sentence. Now, in this case, you should use a comma before the transition. Now let's have some examples with a semicolon. Meat is not the only source of proteins, semicolon. For example, beans are a good source. As I told you earlier, after the semicolon, the letter should be small. And then the rest of the cases are similar. Like here, we have, for example, after the subject, and there at the end of the sentence. Now, let's have some purposes of transitional words or phrases. Why do we use them? First of all, we can use transitions for additional information. If you want to add some information to one idea, you can use transitional words. And you cannot use every transitional word or phrase to add some information. There are specific transitional words or phrases for additional information. And they are furthermore, moreover, besides, and in addition. All of them have got similar meanings. They are used to add information to one idea. For showing contrast, Contrast means difference. So they are however, on the other hand, nevertheless, on the contrary, nonetheless, and in contrast. All of them have got similar meanings. For telling reality or for telling a fact, we can use in fact, indeed, in reality, as a matter of fact. For making examples, so we can use for instance or for example. So example and instance have the same meaning. For cause and effect, so there is a relationship between cause and effect. Cause means the reason for doing something, and effect means its result. So what are the transitional words or phrases? The first one is thus, consequently, therefore, as a result, and hence. And they have similar meanings. For conclusion or for a result, we can use finally, eventually, or in conclusion. For similarity, we can use likewise, similarly, in the same way. When things are similar or when ideas are similar, we can use these transitional words or phrases. And for sequence or chronology, so in simple words, whenever you want to number ideas, first idea, second idea, third idea. So for such stuff, we can use transitions for sequence or chronology, first, second, now, then, next, later. Every one of them has a different meaning. This is a complete list, like you can say first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. Now let's have some examples. First of all, with period or full stop. He didn't study hard, therefore he failed the test. Now that's a cause and effect relationship. This is the cause or the reason. The reason for what? For failing the test. You can use therefore after the subject. He didn't study hard, he therefore failed the test. Or he didn't study hard, he failed the test, therefore. You can also use it with semicolon. For example, he didn't study hard, semicolon, therefore he failed the test. Here, this T of therefore should be small. Or, he didn't study hard, he therefore failed the test. He didn't study hard, he failed the test, therefore. Remember, transition is set off. Set off means separated. With comma from the rest of the sentence. As I told you earlier, if you want to separate or set off a transitional word or phrase from the rest of a sentence, you must use a comma. Or, if needed, 2 commas. Like here, we have got 2 commas. Here and here, we have 1 comma. Some more examples. We studied grammar. Now here, I want to add some information to the first idea. So, in addition to studying grammar, we did something else also. So we can say, moreover, we learned many new words. Now, besides learning grammar, we also learned many new words. That's called additional information. Instead of moreover, in this sentence you can also use furthermore or in addition. Now, the second way of saying the same sentence is like, we studied grammar, we, moreover, learned many new words. Or, we studied grammar, we learned many new words, moreover. The third one is not a very common usage of transitions. Let's have some examples with semicolon. For example, he is very ill. However, he comes to office. Now, we use however to show contrast or difference. The contrast between these 2 sentences is being ill and coming to office. We usually don't expect ill people to come to office, but this person is coming. However means but. Instead of however, you can also use on the contrary, or nevertheless, or nonetheless. He is very ill, he, however, comes to office. That's the second way. Or, he is very ill, he comes to office, however. Now let's do an exercise. Here, several writing samples are described. After reading each one, write 2 transitions the writer can use for the situation. So I'm going to give you a situation and you have to tell me at least 2 transitions for the specific situation. For example, number 1. Sharif wants to describe how his 2 cousins look alike. So here, the key word is alike. It means similar. And if you remember, we talked about some transitional words or phrases for showing similarity. So we can use similarly or in the same way. And there are some others also. But you just need to think about 2 transitional words or phrases. Good luck with the rest of them. Alright, now let's talk about the answers. Number 2. Mariam wants to finish a speech about pollution. It means that she wants to give a conclusion or the ending. So for conclusions, we use in conclusion or finally. Number 3. A teacher wants to tell an opposite point of the lesson. So opposite. Opposite means contrasting. So for contrast, we can use however or nevertheless. 4. Solava wants to give extra information about the lesson. Now here, she wants to add some information to one idea or more ideas. So she can use the transitional words moreover or furthermore. And number 5, the writer wants to tell the reality in this part of the story. Now he wants to tell the fact. Now for showing facts, we use in fact or indeed. Let's do one more exercise. Here, you have to read the below paragraph and find the transitions. For example, the first transition, let's find it together. Science work is a popular subject for books, TV, and movies. Would you, however, guess that some people dream science fiction? Now here, the transition is however. Good luck with the rest of them. Alright, now let's talk about them. For instance, Steve recently dreamed a science fiction. Here, the transition is for instance, and it provides us with an example, with an instance. With an example for what? For dreaming science fiction. Steve dreamed that he was in a time machine. There, he began to play with the controls. Now here, the transitional word is there. And it talks about a place. He found himself suddenly flying through time. Steve was frightened. In fact, he fainted. Now here, the transition is in fact, and it wants, here the writer wants to tell a reality, a fact. And that fact is that he fainted. Soon, the machine came to stop. The transition here is soon, and it also refers to time. It means immediately. Sparking lights showed a huge tower nearby. Furthermore, a strange song called him. So here the transition is furthermore, and it adds information. Instead of furthermore, you can also use in addition or moreover. There was nothing to stop him. The choice, therefore, was all his. Here, the transition is therefore, and it tells us cause and effect relationship. The cause is there was nothing to stop him, and the effect or the result was that the choice was his. Should Steve turn back or go on? He awoke before he could find out. As a result, Steve will know for sure where the machine took him. So here we have as a result. And here the writer wants to tell us a conclusion. This concludes our session for today. Do not forget that there is an exercise related to the same video that you just watched. Remember, this was just a short version of our today's lesson. The same lesson is taught in complete details in our regular classes. Thank you very much for staying with us.